Tonight, an 11th hour emergency intervention to avoid an economic derailment. But still no firm timeline to get trains back on track.
Hopefully we will be able to get our trains up and running as quickly as possible.
The delay costing money.
This is the most detrimental time for us as farmers.
Kamala Harris set to make history on the final night of the Democratic National Convention.
I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
While pro-Palestinian supporters hold sit-ins on the sidelines.
Gov't is watching as we are taking action.
Plus, stumbling out of the gate.
Critics have been saying, it's so weird, it's too long.
The misleading trailer to a major new Hollywood film. And lasting legacy.
A unique way to have the participants feel welcome to our province.
A nod to the man who popularized kissing the cod.
1, 2, 3.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina. Reporting tonight from the Democratic National Convention in Chicago.
Good evening, everyone. Kamala Harris has just made history here in Chicago, accepting her party's nomination for president, beginning a final 75-day sprint to Election Day. She's speaking live at this hour. Let's listen in.
In advancing our security and values abroad. As Vice President, I have confronted threats to our security, negotiated with foreign leaders, strengthened our alliances, and engaged with our brave troops overseas. As Commander-in-Chief, I will ensure America always has the strongest, most lethal fighting force in the world. And I will fulfill our sacred obligation to care for our troops and their families, and I will always honor and never disparage their service and their sacrifice. I will make sure that we lead the world into the future on space and artificial intelligence, that America, not China, wins the competition for the 21st century, and that we strengthen, not abdicate, our global leadership. Trump, on the other hand, threatened to abandon NATO. He encouraged Putin to invade our allies, said Russia could, quote, do whatever the hell they want. 5 days before Russia attacked Ukraine, I met with President Zelensky to warn him about Russia's plan to invade. I helped mobilize a global response, over 50 countries, to defend against Putin's aggression. And as president, I will stand strong with Ukraine and our NATO allies. With respect to the war in Gaza, President Biden and I are working around the clock, because now is the time to get a hostage deal and a ceasefire deal done. And let me be clear, I will always stand up for Israel's right to defend itself, and I will always ensure Israel has the ability to defend itself, because the people of Israel must never again face the horror that a terrorist organization called Hamas caused on October 7, including unspeakable sexual violence and the massacre of young people at a music festival. At the same time, what has happened in Gaza over the past 10 months is devastating. desperate, hungry people fleeing for safety over and over again. The scale of suffering is heartbreaking. President Biden and I are working to end this war such that Israel is secure, the hostages are released, the suffering in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, security, freedom, and self-determination. And know this, I will never hesitate to take whatever action is necessary to defend our forces and our interests against Iran and Iran-backed terrorists. I will not cozy up to tyrants and dictators like Kim Jong-un who are rooting for Trump.
Vice President Kamala Harris has just accepted her party's nomination for president and speaking there live. Let's go to CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Melvin, and let's just pick up on that last point because she has been projecting a sense of unity. That's what the party has been trying to do over the past 4 days. But this issue of the war in Gaza has been a major source of division as well.
Yeah, that has been one of the biggest challenge. We heard her before talk about how, yes, Israel has the right to defend itself, but how it does so matters. There have been protests all week, a sit-in just outside this convention. Delegates, uncommitted delegates, wanted to have a speaking role here tonight because, of course, we heard from an American hostage family last night. But she's being very strong on the issue, saying that, yes, Palestinians have a right to live free and that they are working tirelessly for a ceasefire.
There has been a lot of energy, a lot of passion over the past 4 days at this convention. Her challenge now, Joy, will be to take all of this energy and try to punch through to voters who are undecided.
Well, absolutely. She's presenting herself as the change candidate, and she's going to try and harness this energy, what she calls joyful warriors, to not look back, not talk about bitterness and grievances and political tribalism. She contrasted herself many times with Donald Trump, reminding us of January 6th and the insurrectionists, reminding us that the Supreme Court gave President Trump and future presidents immunity from criminal prosecution, saying we've got to work really, really hard so there is not a second version of that.
And if you listen to the speech tonight, she has carefully constructed this narrative arc in her speech, right? Saying that she was inspired to social justice through her parents, and that led to a career as a prosecutor, which has now led to where she is now.
Yeah, it's a relatable story. It really is. The daughter of immigrants, middle class, working at McDonald's. And I love what she talked about her mom, coming to America. That's the American dream, isn't it? Everybody comes here. Everybody wants to be part of America. And that's what she's calling for them, saying, look, there's no differences between us. We may have, differences, but we are all Americans. I love what her dad said, though. Run, Kamala, run. And now she's running for the highest office in the land.
CTV's Joy Melvin, thank you so much. Let's go back and listen in to Kamala Harris live.
Out there every day denigrating America, talking about how terrible everything is. Well, my mother had another lesson she used to teach. Never let anyone tell you who you are. You show them who you are. Let us show each other and the world who we are and what we stand for. Freedom, opportunity, compassion, dignity, fairness, and endless possibilities. We are the heirs to the greatest democracy in the history of the world. And on behalf of our children and our grandchildren and all those who sacrificed so dearly for our freedom and liberty, we must be worthy of this moment. It is now our turn to do what generations before us have done, guided
Let's
by
bring in CTV's
optimism
chief
and faith.
political correspondent Vashi Kapellos right now. And over the past few days there and before, there have been major questions around policy, right? Domestic policy, foreign policy. Has Kamala Harris been able to fill in any of those blanks over the past 4 days?
I think tonight we're hearing a little bit more about policy than many had anticipated, and I think that criticism had largely come from the Republicans, right? They're like, you go on our website, there's no policy. Is she going to add more meat to the bone? The Democrats counter as well. What's your policy? Project 2025, they accuse. But also the campaign is fairly new. I thought tonight she did add some more meat to the bone, particularly I know you were talking to Joy about foreign policy in that aspect. She also talked a lot about the middle class and some of the things she had previously announced and some more stuff she plans to do. So it's certainly like the economy front of mind. I thought she did do more on policy than maybe her critics would have guessed.
Speaking of the economy, we know that the Canada-U.S. relationship is so important, but those negotiations, that relationship has sometimes been fractious with the Republicans, but also with the Democrats right now, especially what we are seeing with softwood lumber. They have increased under this administration duties on softwood lumber. How are Canadian officials preparing for a possible Harris presidency?
They've doubled the softwood lumber tariffs. Just last week they announced, right? So it's a protectionist government everywhere. The crowd's just responding right now as she concludes her speech. Look, she was one of 10 senators to vote against the new NAFTA. Not a lot of indications tonight about how she feels about trade, but it will be something that as Canadians, we're going to be watching for going forward to see where she falls if it's outside of how Biden has governed on that aspect.
All right, CTV's Vashi Kapellos, thank you so much. Let's turn our attention now to the other big story at home, the massive work stoppage that also impacts the movement of products to this country. The federal government ordering both sides into binding arbitration today and saying trains will begin moving again in a matter of days. But every minute is money. Every day, $1 billion worth of goods travels on CN and Canadian Pacific Kansas City lines. Collectively, they have more than 34,000 kilometers of track. CTV's Geneviève Beauchemin reports.
Workers were on picket lines and trains stalled for less than 17 hours before Ottawa stepped in, intent on getting the economy chugging along rail lines once again.
I'm using my authorities under the Canada Labour Code to secure industrial peace and deliver the short and long-term solutions that are in the national interest.
Rail transport is not just woven into the history of Canada. It's a crucial link in the supply chain. But a timeline for things to get back on the rails is still not clear. CN announced it had ended the lockout it triggered at 12:01 a.m. And while it had called for arbitration, it expressed disappointment no solution came from the bargaining table. 9 months of failed negotiations led to this, with both sides blaming one another. Both of Canada's main railways, CN and CPKC, claim they've made repeated offers that are good for employees, good for the economy.
These are not minimum wage jobs. They pay $120,000 for a conductor and $150,000 for a locomotive engineer. We have offered to improve wages, to improve rest, and to provide more predictability and scheduling.
The Teamsters Union says it isn't taking down its picket lines yet, and that it is deeply disappointed with Ottawa's shameful decision giving in to railways.
They want to work you until you fall asleep. And unfortunately, we have a lot of people with young families that they want to go home to. We work midnight shifts and day shifts throughout the week. Some people work on call with only 2 hours notice. And you never know if you're coming or going from work.
The NDP says Ottawa's decision shows the Liberals are anti-worker. Leader Jagmeet Singh joined workers on the picket line in Montreal earlier in the day and had issued a warning to the government.
We want to send a clear message to Justin Trudeau and to the Liberals that we don't want to see any interference by Justin Trudeau that interferes with the fair negotiation of a contract.
The railways wound down operations for days, leading to this unprecedented halt. But getting trains rolling again could also take days. This is now in the hands of the Canada Industrial Relations Board, and there's no timeline as to the next steps. Omar.
All right, Geneviève, thank you. And to another big labor story now. Air Canada pilots have voted overwhelmingly in favor of a strike that could see them walk off the job as early as September 17th. The union representing 5,400 pilots says the vote passed by 98%. Negotiations between the union and airline have been ongoing for more than a year. The union wants Air Canada to address salary, retirement, and scheduling concerns. RCMP say they are responding to additional bomb threats across Canada a day after more than 100 synagogues, Jewish organizations, and doctors in multiple cities received a similar threat. The latest targets include museums, malls, ports, and art galleries. And the Mounties suspect the same people may be behind both threats. International and domestic police forces are involved in the investigation. And the RCMP have laid terrorism charges against a suspect in the Toronto area. The charges include participating in the activities of a terrorist group and counseling another person to commit a terrorism offense. The suspect was a minor at the time of the alleged offenses and cannot be named. The body of a British tech billionaire, Mike Lynch, has been found in the wreckage of a super yacht that sank off the coast of Sicily on Monday. The Italian Coast Guard says rescue crews have now recovered the bodies of 5 people. 1 woman is still missing. The $18 million yacht went down in a ferocious storm. 15 of the 22 people aboard survived, including Lynch's wife. The Canadian man, the onboard chef, also died. Coming up, mea culpa.
This illustrates the almost limitless stupidity of some people.
A studio's apology for fake quotes on a celebrated filmmaker, plus the Newfoundlander who taught tourists to kiss a fish. Lionsgate has now recalled the new trailer for Francis Ford Coppola's upcoming film, Megalopolis, because of new revelations of fabricated quotes from critics. The studio is apologizing and admitting, quote, "We screwed up." CTV's BC Bureau Chief Andrew Johnson on the fallout and the possible role of AI.
True genius is often misunderstood.
The new trailer for Francis Ford Coppola's film Megalopolis, a sci-fi epic starring Adam Driver set in a decaying modern America, suggests critics are getting it all wrong.
Critics have been saying, it's so weird, it's too long, we don't understand what this movie is.
The trailer compiles quotes from some of the greatest names in film criticism, bashing Coppola flicks that are now considered classics.
The Godfather and Apocalypse Now among them, and say, hey, look, the critics got it wrong about those. They must also be getting it wrong about Megalopolis.
Instead, what's wrong is the trailer itself. The quotes from the likes of the late Roger Ebert are either taken out of context or false, made up.
This illustrates the almost limitless stupidity of some people who believe that they can use artificial intelligence tools without detection.
Distributor Lionsgate isn't admitting what happened, but curious ChatGPT users asking the AI software to generate critical Coppola quotes are coming up with eerily similar fake results.
If you are going to use artificial intelligence to cheat on anything, whether it's an exam or whether it's quotes in a movie trailer, you can and will be caught.
Lionsgate is apologizing to the director and his production company. We offer our sincere apologies to the critics involved and to Francis Ford Coppola and American Zoetrope for this inexcusable error in our vetting process. We screwed up. We are sorry. The film was actually self-financed by Coppola, a passion project decades in the making. Megalopolis premieres in North America next month at the Toronto International Film Festival. Andrew Johnson, CTV News, Vancouver.
Still ahead, the world's second largest diamond ever unearthed by a Canadian company. A major discovery by a Canadian mining company in Botswana. Here's the country's president showing off what is believed to be the world's second largest diamond ever. It is about the size of a fist and is 2,500 carats. No word yet on the price tag. The largest ever diamond found was more than 3,100 carat, mined in 1905. That became part of the British Crown Jewels. A newspaper that documented the immediate aftermath of the sinking of the Titanic has been discovered in a wardrobe after 112 years. It's an edition of British paper The Daily Mirror from April 20th, 1912. The front page shows 2 women in Southampton, the English port city where the Titanic set sail, waiting for a list of survivors to be posted. Inside, a gallery of images of people who were on board the ship. More than 1,500 people died in the tragedy. The paper sold this week at auction for 34 British pounds, or about 60 Canadian dollars. A piece of history. After the break, bidding farewell to the man behind a quirky Newfoundland welcome. Newfoundlander Merle Vokey died this week at the age of 85. The longtime educator is credited with popularizing a quirky tradition for come-from-aways, visiting the Rock. CTV's Garrett Barry has the story.
He worked really hard to be an ambassador for Newfoundland.
He was a true lover of his home, whose work as an educator and a teacher's advocate took him just about everywhere.
Because no matter where I went, everybody knew Dad. Oh, you're Merle's daughter.
And that's how he christened the Screech-In, that playful ceremony where come-from-aways could become so-called honorary Newfoundlanders by downing a drink and kissing a codfish.
He was involved in planning a national teachers conference, and the NLTA staff were really interested in finding a unique way to have the participants feel welcome to our province and have a very memorable experience.
It quickly became a hit, copied across the province, and then a whole industry, advertising to tourists visiting Newfoundland and Labrador. It's not without some controversy. Some critics would say the whole thing reinforces bad stereotypes about Newfoundlanders. But for Merle, when he started it, it was a celebration of songs and stories, the best that Newfoundland had to offer.
I think they go away feeling that they took part in a unique and special ceremony that gave them a sense of belonging.
Even practiced by celebrity visitors. It's hard to believe your father or grandfather could have created such a fixture in this province.
Growing up telling friends, my poppy made that Screech-In, they wouldn't really, believe that, right? Because it seems like it's been in this place for years and years and years.
To his children and grandchildren, he was a loving and ever-present figure who lived a full life right until the very end.
He was just the warmest person to be around, and he always made anyone that was around just feel so welcome.
Tributes have been rolling in, like one from former Great Big Sea singer Bob Hallett, who wrote, "It's not everyone who gets to invent a tradition and do it so well the whole province buys in." Garrett Barry, CTV News, St. John's.
And that is a snapshot of this Thursday from Chicago. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching, and good night.
CTV National News, Canada's #1 newscast.
Canadians have turned to CTV National News for more than 60 years.
And now there's a new national newscast at 5:30.
It's more of the news you trust.
More of the experience you rely on.
Watch Canada's #1 national news now at 5:30 and 11.